Hi everybody, this is Willie at newandlostcrafts.com. Want to do a video, maybe even a series, on how to replace a screen if you have a screen door. I think most people at some point, especially if you have dogs or cats, have a screen that looks like this as they try to scratch at it and get in. And believe it or not, this is the tough stuff that's supposed to be pretty dog-proof. And it did good for several years, but you work at it long enough, they're going to get through it. Anyway, it's bug season, so it's time to remedy this little situation. And so I thought it'd be a good video. Now, I guess one of the first things you have to look at is, is the frame even worth keeping? These things are just cheap metal, and you can see there's cracks in it from the stress of the dogs pushing on it. I think the sides are probably okay, but the top and the bottom, I should have this turned like this, I believe. But you can see where they've just been pushing on it, and so I think we're going to have to replace those parts as well. So that's about it. That's the introduction. Let's get to it. Okay, so first up, as I mentioned, I wanted to replace these two sides that are bent, in this case the top and bottom. And I lucked out big time from a previous project with the solar window heaters, which is another video on the site. Have some leftover that is just going to work out perfectly. So what I'm going to do is take these two pieces of leftover before I disassemble anything, and just so I don't have to use a ruler, and squeeze them up against here. Take a little Sharpie and mark where to cut them. And I'll do the same thing to the other side. It's nice to do it before you disassemble it, because these things can get kind of floppy. The screen and the other pieces tend to firm it up a bit. So I'm going to mark these two. I'm going to use a miter saw, a miter block with the guide, and a metal blade to cut these pieces to size. I don't think I'm going to film that. If you need to know how to do that, do a search on YouTube. If somebody out there wants me to make one, I certainly can. Okay, as you can see, we have two brand new replacement pieces for these guys, one for each side. Now the next step is to go ahead and get rid of the old screen, get rid of these old sides, and then go ahead and disassemble the frame and reassemble it to put the new screen in. Now I'm going to preface this with, I replaced this screen in the past, and you'll come across all sorts of different methods of installation. You can see down here, this is the insert, the kind of the rubber gasket type insert. What do you call this thing? Retainer spline. Now, because I did this is going to come out pretty easily. Some of the older ones, it was a different, see, this is kind of a circular pattern. It was more of a T pattern, and they kind of baked into the crevices over years. So they're a lot more difficult to get out. Where this one's just going to pull out without any issue. And I'll show you how to do this. I've since changed my technique as well. But so there's the old spline, and we'll just throw that away. And then the screen will literally just pull out. This can be kind of messy as well, so be careful where you do it. Don't get yourself in trouble. Alright. Now, as I mentioned, that can be a lot more difficult than what I just showed you. So if you have an awl and a small hammer, sometimes that can help to kind of dig the spline out of there. Also, if you have a good sharp utility knife or a knife that you use for that type of thing, if you have one that's stuck, if you kind of cut it in pieces, a lot of times it'll make it come out a lot easier. So, now that we have the screen out, I'm going to set these aside for a second. these disassemble fairly easily. So you can see the bend in that guy. And then this side, this one. Okay, so that one's thoroughly wrecked. So we'll toss that along with the old spline and the old screen, and out with the old, in with the new. And you want to line up these channels so the spline will fit in there. Okay, same thing with the other side. And then what we're going to do is cut out for a second so I can get the screen ready and throw some of this old stuff away. But then we'll start installing the new screen. So I have a little bit of a bend here, nothing like those other pieces, not worried about that. As long as it's laying fairly flat, it'll take care of itself. And I'll be ready. So now we're going to install the new screen. And as I mentioned before, this is kind of the what they call dog resistant screen. I think it's like nylon type composition. Anyway, what I like to do is just get a general feel for how much you're going to need, unless you're really nitpicking, and go ahead and cut out, give yourself a couple inches on each side to allow for a little bit of air. Now, I'm using this dog stuff. I have some incredibly sharp scissors here, and you want to make sure that you have sharp scissors. If you're using aluminum, just note that you can ruin your scissors in a pretty big hurry as far as sharpness. So, you know, even tin snips, in that case the carbon fiber isn't much better. So I just wanted to warn you, when you use your scissors, choose wisely. So, we got the general layout here. Also, there can be a little bit difference in pattern. I don't think it really matters. If somebody out there has a difference of opinion, please let me know. But then first, and really only tool that's specialty that you're going to need, and you buy one and you're good forever, is the spline installer. And it has kind of a ridged edge and an edge that's not ridged. And I finally figured out how to do this properly. And so what you want to do is start with one end and use the non-ridged edge and use it to rough insert the screen into your frame. And that's what we're going to start with. Okay? So you're going to take some spline and do a little bit of research on your dimensions. This stuff comes in different diameters. This one is 0.14, pretty common one. Then you're going to start pretty near the edge. You don't have to go clear to the edge. In fact, you don't want to. Then you're going to take the other edge, the grooved one, and push that right in there. You're just going to follow that trench that you just made all the way across. Now, be careful doing this. It can get a bit frustrating until you get the hang of it. Take your time. But with the aluminum and you know, the more fragile screens, a slip here can actually break your screen, and it means you're starting all over again. So be careful. It can be a tad frustrating. This screen is nice to work with because it can take a pretty big beating. Alright, so got that side done, and what I'm going to do is pull just a little bit back from this corner. You don't want it to go all the way to the corner, and I'm going to go ahead and finish that off. Now, I told you I had learned a few things over the years. I used to go ahead and round the corners, and I don't do that anymore. I'm going to use 4 pieces to do this. The thing that's nice is that now I'm going to turn this around. We'll be able to pull it fairly tight on the other end and you know, get some tension on the screen, so it makes it real nice. And that's what we'll be doing next. Alright, so now we're on the opposite end. And so we're going to take our non-grooved side of this thing. And now this is where we start wanting a little bit of tension. But my advice here is don't get nuts with this. Just pull it a little taut. Go ahead and make your ridge with this tool. If you make it too taut, it's just going to be a real pain when you start doing the other sides. As you put the spline in, this thing is going to naturally get tighter anyway. So don't do it too tight, but you're going to do the same thing to this end, just a little bit of tension. And yeah, especially the aluminum and the more standard stuff. This stuff takes a beating. It's pretty neat. It is a little bit more expensive, but you know, if you can afford it and you have animals that like to scratch at it, it's worthwhile. So you can see it kind of add tension to the screen as I go across here. Again, be careful. Don't go too fast, because you don't want to break it and have to start all over. Alright. Beautiful. Now, pull this back a little bit. And clip. And refinish that off. Alright. Now we're on to the sides. Okay, so at this point I'd turn this around 90 degrees. And this is pretty easy, everybody. We're just going to make our grooves. Don't worry about tension at this point. It pretty much takes care of itself. And you're just going to insert the splines like the other two sides. But you see some of this looseness. It'll tighten up by itself. And you'll get used to using the spline and the spline tool as you do a couple of these. It's not hard. It can be a little frustrating until you get the hang of it, but once you get the hang of it, it's really very easy. Alright, so there's that side. I'm going to clip this one, finish it off. I'm going to do the other side just like it. Again, don't have to worry about tension at this point, because it's going to pull itself all together by the fact that we paid attention to it on these sides. And then we'll be right back. Okay, so now we have all the sides installed and looking really good. Now what I'm going to do is trim off the excess, and you can do that with a box type knife. I don't think I've ever seen a tool specifically for this, but just make sure you have a nice sharp knife. And you're going to angle in over the spline that you just installed, and it'll make kind of a cutting guide for you to go ahead and just slice the excess right off of there. And I typically miss a few spots, so let's just run over that again. Okay, you start to see that come loose, leaving us with a beautifully done new screen. And take your time doing this. For gosh sake, don't cut yourself. A little trick with your knife. You get to the edge, kind of cut through a little bit. So follow that inside edge. Don't cut down on your spline. Let it just be your guide. And then clean up the edges. I'm going to do that to all four sides. And we're pretty much done. I'll show you the end product, and then we'll go install it. So one more quick note, once you're done trimming off your excess, always go around with your spline tool again. Just give it a once over. And depending on your tension, these can potato chip a little bit, but once it's installed, you won't notice it. That's why I said don't get too wacky on the tension. Alright, we're good to go. I'm going to go put this in our storm door in the back and enjoy a nice breeze again. Alright, so there it is, all installed. Still got some dirty windows, but we'll deal with that. So hopefully this helped you out, how to install a screen. And it's the same for a big door or a little door. Just how much material do you need to buy. Hopefully this helped you out. This is Willie at newlandscrafts.com. If this helped you out, please share it with other folks. If you like this, go ahead and visit our blog also. Lots more videos like this that can really help you out. Thanks for watching. Bye.